This video has a focus on using rhythm tracks in Songtrix. See the drums track video first for an introduction to the editing operations we will be using. The most important element of a song, after the tune itself, is the harmonic background of the chords and the rhythm they are played with. This can appear in many forms, like a piano, an organ, or an orchestra. Songtrix can accommodate all of these and more, with the chords and rhythm tracks working together. But here we will see how to make a guitar strumming rhythm. Our focus is the rhythm track. To edit the first segment, we select and open it. Like the other tracks, we see the grid for this bar with the beat numbers marked at the bottom. Unlike the other tracks, rhythm events are designed for playing chords, and so they can go across multiple lines. But something is wrong here. We can't hear the chord event that we have just created. It's because we haven't yet given it a chord to play. So we'll save this rhythm segment and return to the workspace to do that. You see our new chord event here in miniature. Above it, no chord yet, so let's select one. Just something simple to begin with, like C major, which contains the notes C, E, and G. Now, when we return to our rhythm segment, we see the chord we selected appears above it, and the tones of the chord, C, E, and G, have become available as the lines of the rhythm segment that our events can play. Notice that with this event, all of the chord tones are played at the same time. To create a more authentic guitar rhythm, we are going to switch to the strum chord tool for the other events. We hear the difference in sound caused by the slope in the leading edge, and we can change the speed of the strum by adjusting the slope. Then we continue on to create some more strum events. It's usually easier to create them all first, and then we can right-click in the background to drop the strum tool and get our selection pointer back to adjust them with. By holding down the Shift key, I can select more than one event and adjust them both together. The slope of the strum events can be adjusted right through vertical to create a back strum. Remember that the higher pitched tones are on the top lines. We can even select our original chord event and change it to a strum event as well. If we listen to the rhythm we have here, it's a good starting point, so we'll save it and return to the worksheet to see what we can do with it. You see our rhythm here, and because of the following repeat segments, a grey copy of it in all of the other bars. So our one bar rhythm has been instantly propagated throughout the whole song. But one chord doesn't make for a very interesting song. So let's add a few chord changes, selecting from the root notes and chord types to get the chords we want. Let's hear that. Notice how the same rhythm is playing a different set of notes after each chord change. Let's take a closer look at the repeat segment in bar 2. We see the repeat events here in grey, but the notes for each line are no longer C, E, and G. Instead, they are the tones of the E7 chord, selected for this bar. The chords and rhythm tracks have great flexibility because they are separate but work together like this. The sound of the rhythm track can be adjusted using the track setup here. We can adjust the overall volume level and stereo pan position, and we can change the instrument voice that is being used. So, instead of a nylon string guitar, we could use a ukulele. This button will audition the voice using the rhythm that we have selected in the workspace. Or we could change to a steel string guitar or a distortion guitar. In fact, even though the icon for the rhythm track is a small guitar, we are not limited to guitar sounds at all. Instead, we could use a piano, an organ, or any of the 200 voices available. Some rhythm styles sound more natural for particular instruments, of course, but the whole creative canvas is there for you to explore. For now, we will select the jazz guitar, which has a warm, slightly electric sound. Returning to our rhythm now, let's look at some improvements that we can make. It still sounds a little flat because all strums are played with the same velocity or loudness. We can select a few events and adjust this to give the rhythm a more natural feel. As we make them louder, they become darker. As we make them softer, they become lighter. We can also adjust the events in other ways by showing the Properties panel on the right. In particular, we can change the equalization, which is the balance of loudness between the low and high-pitched tones within a chord. Recall that the pitches go upwards across the grid lines. At the moment, the equalization for this event is flat, meaning that all tones are played with the same loudness. But we can change this to emphasize the high tones, the low tones, the mid tones, or the outer tones. The final choice is human, which creates random emphasis across the tones, more like what actually happens with normal playing technique. If we select all events and apply human equalization, we can hear the rhythm is starting to sound much more natural to the ear. However, it's still quite repetitive. Although the chord changes on every bar, the rhythm is always the same. We can create a smoother and more interesting effect by using a 2 or 4 bar rhythm pattern instead. To do that, we want our first segment to extend across into bar 2 as well. So we select these two segments and join them. Now, when we open the Edit window, we are dealing with a segment that is twice as long. Let's hide the Properties panel and zoom to width, so it's easier to see. You see the repeat events in bar 2 have now been converted into real events that we can select and edit. So let's make a few changes here. We'll delete this one, move the others across, and by holding the Control key, we get a plus symbol on the mouse pointer to clone these events and fill the gap. Now we have a more sophisticated 2-bar rhythm that will repeat in a more subtle way. Back at the worksheet, we need to join the repeat segments into 2-bar lengths as well, so that the longer pattern can be fully rendered within them. We have seen just one type of rhythm here, but many are possible. A great starting point is to use auto-style songs or the paste style command to explore and modify the rhythms in the musical styles supplied with Songtrix.